is 12 o'clock. We'd like to try to start on time, so welcome and thank you for attending our weekly new knowledge session. Today's session is how to write and submit a press release. And we have the experts here. We have Neil Montgomery, who is the marketing director for the town of Abingdon. And we have the publisher of the Bristol Herald Courier here. And if he can't tell you how to submit a press release in the Tri-Cities, I don't know that there's anybody else that could. So without further ado, thank you for coming, and Neil will start.
All right, let me walk in front of you and say. All right, bear with me. I'm trying to get everything together. All right, as she said, I'm Neil Montgomery, and I will tell you that I'm now on the police department and fire department side of the press, so I had to kind of switch gears back to the marketing side and kind of reteach myself how to do the marketing type press releases. So if I kind of go off or I say something that doesn't really pertain to what we're talking about, you'll know that's because I'm going back and forth between the two. Of course, just a little overview. What is a press release? A written statement to the media. Who writes press releases? Business owners, nonprofit organizations, attractions, local, state, and federal government, corporations, and lots of other people, schools, everything else. What do they write about usually? Events, promotions, awards that you've been given, new products and services, accomplishments, retirements, anything you feel is newsworthy is what you're going to write about, of course. When should you send a press release? Okay, this is very important, of course. If it's about an event, for example, you want to send it to the paper or to the TV or to the radio with plenty of time so they can get it on their calendars, 2 weeks to 1 week in advance, most likely in the mornings, and then the best days, of course, to send them are Tuesdays through Thursdays. I guess you would kind of consider it like slow press days, maybe.
Depending on what you're promoting.
Right, exactly.
If
So
it's bad news, Friday afternoons as late as possible.
exactly. That way it doesn't get covered up in all the weekend news and all that. Why should you write a press release? Of course, the big thing is it's free. It's free to write this and free to send it out. It's marketing. It gets you the big news out there, the media attention that you want to get. It's getting people's attention, which of course is going to make sales go up, bring people into your business, all those type of things. And of course it's going to improve your search engine optimization. So if someone goes to look for your website and they see articles about you come up in the news, then they're going to know you're legit. And if they see your Facebook come up and all those other things, everything all together is going to let them know that you're a real business and what you're doing is all true and to verify everything. How do you write a press release? Of course, this is the main thing, and I have little sheets that I'll just hand around kind of just to get you started. But you want to gather all the information on what you're writing about. And then you want to ask yourself these questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. And what I do and what I've done is just make up a little sheet that has all those questions on it, and then I just go through and fill them out. And then that way I have all the information I need to then put it into the press release. Any additional information that you need is very important. Quotes are very important. You want to get, a quote from whoever's involved, a quote from the director, a quote from someone that it's happened to, or someone who's attended the event the year before, any of those types of things. And then ask yourself, as you're writing this, is this going to get somebody's attention? Is this what somebody wants to read about in the newspaper? Is this what they want to hear on the TV? Is this what, when they do the little, not even 30-second commercial on the radio, is that going to catch somebody's attention? And of course, just some examples of the questions. What is the actual news you're trying to write about? Who is it about? Where does it take place? Why is this news? And how is it happening? And of course, just some tips when you're writing. After you put everything together in the who, what, where, when, why section, you've got your quotes, you have everything. Keep it short. You want to go about 1 page, couple paragraphs. You get too lengthy, people just don't want to read everything. We are all ADHD in some way. We have a short attention span. We want to, just for example, you get on Facebook, you're not going to read all of an article. You want to see a picture. You want a short little thing to look at with the information. Then if you get further into it, you may click off into a further, longer article, but we're all want to know the facts right then. Of course, more newsworthy, more likely to be printed. So if you won an award, for example, we won Friendliest Town in Southwest Virginia, then that would be newsworthy. That's something that, you know, we were up against all the other towns in Southwest Virginia, so we want to put that information out there. Make it positive. Positive spin on it is great, upbeat, that's what people want to hear. Look at other releases, do some research. I, of course, when I started doing this, had to research everything. I basically taught myself how to write a press release via the internet, looked at other press releases people have written, looked at, you know, the formats, looked at everything, and I would go and look, if it was an event, for example, then I would go look at an event. We'll use the Shamrock race for the example. It's a 4-mile race. So I would go and look at other press releases people had sent out about road races or things like that to see what kind of information they're sharing, and if that article got printed, so what they all have included in that. Is the release, of course, you look at all that, is it ready to go to the press? So you write it, is the content good? Is it full of errors? Is your grammar correct? Is it news and not just advertising? So you want to remember, you're thinking about this as a reporter. You know, what are they going to want to know? What are they going to want to report? Not just advertising for an event. They're wanting a little bit deeper into it. The layout, of course, just 1 page. You want to have a title, maybe even a subtitle that tells, you know, what company it is. You want to have the title that catches their attention, of course. The subtitle that tells, you know, what it's about, who this is from. So you'd want to include, for instance, like we would put the town of Abingdon because it's about the town. Then you want to put the contact information for the person who is going to be the contact for the press. So whoever's going to be the person that answer any questions about it, get them more information, all that, you want to have the contact information on there. You also want to include websites and even a Facebook page. If they have something to also go off and look at with more information, that's even better. And then, of course, just use the 3 hashtags at the end to symbolize that's the end of the press release. And then, of course, these are kind of small, and I brought a couple of examples that I can pass around and show you guys. These are just some examples of press releases that I've written in the past. Of course, Earth Day event, which is in April, and you have the logo at the top, the contact information, the title, what it is, the body, and then at the bottom we have even more contact information about where they can go to find out more information about the event, times, you know, all that stuff if it's not included, and the website as well as the Sustain Abingdon Facebook pages on there. So lots of information for them to find out all they need to know about this Earth Day event. And of course, this press release on this side is about Lawrence Dye. I don't know if you guys know Lawrence. He rides the Creeper Trail. He's ridden like over hundreds of thousands of miles on the Creeper Trail. So this was about that he had hit his milestone of 182,000 miles that he's ridden. And so we wrote this about him to get press, of course, for him and let people know what he's doing. And so if you see him riding on the Creeper Trail, then you know that it's him. And of course, we attached a picture so that way people, you know, can recognize him. But it just has all the information about Lawrence, about how long he's been riding the Creeper Trail. This one was also to promote the Ride with the Legend event that happens during the Highlands Festival. And then just a little bit of information in italics at the bottom about the Creeper Trail and what it is exactly. That was actually a pitch too that we did to a magazine to let them come and do a feature story on Lawrence. And of course, just a couple of other examples. This one on the left here was about the new website that was unveiled for the Visit Abingdon. And this one on the right was about it being nominated as one of the prettiest painted places. So, actually, I'll tell you, the one on the right was a stock press release that sometimes, if you're nominated for things, they'll send them to you. Then you fill in the information, you give a quote. For example, we gave a quote from Kevin Costello, who was our director, and then we put it all together and sent it to the press to be printed about us being up for that award. And then just a couple of other ones, they're kind of light, they didn't show up as well as I wanted them to. The Rooted in Appalachia Farm to Table campaign, of course, we promoted it, and we promoted the trestle number 7 being reopened after it had been destroyed during the tornado. So those are just a couple of examples of things that you want to report to the news that they're going to be interested in. With the trestle, for example, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony that we also wanted the press to get on their calendar so they would come out and cover the event. So that was another thing that we sent out a couple of weeks early so that they could all be there. And of course, before you send it, I always like to have somebody review, just read over it if you have time. A different set of eyes is always good because, you know, what you may not catch, somebody else will. Joe Tennis, I don't know if you all know Joe Tennis. One time when I was, of course, starting out getting into the press release stuff, he suggested to me, and ever since then I've done it and it's worked really well, is to copy and paste the press release into the body of the email. So I would take the Word document, copy and paste it into the email. Then I'll also convert it to a PDF, and then I attach the PDF to the email as well. So they have two forms of the press release. And he suggested that, of course, because it's easier for them to just get the information off of there and then put it in to start writing their stories.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste, yeah. So attach the PDF if you want to do that as well. Attach your photos and or videos. I do know, this is very recent, but we were told that the paper's now doing videos for online. So if you have any videos and things like that, I would definitely attach them. Then it's time to enter the subject line of the email, which I will say you want to enter something that's going to catch their attention. Don't necessarily just put press release and whatever it is. Put a title, and I use the example of Twitter. If you're trolling through Twitter and you see a topic that catches your eye, what do? You click on the article and read it. So that's kind of what you want to do with the email. You want the subject line to be what they want to open and read. Then, of course, put your CC contacts into the email. And what I mean by CC contacts, put in who else knows about this event or who else could answer questions about it. And also to let that person know that this is going out. Like, for example, I would put in my director's name so he knows that the press release went out. And so if he gets any phone calls from the press, then he'll know, okay, well, she sent that out and this is what I should be expecting about it. And then it's time to distribute. And of course, when you're putting together your press list, I started with the town almost 8 years ago, and I started building my press release from scratch. And I just started getting online, looking at who the reporters were for the area, the newspaper, who to contact at the television stations, who to contact at the radios, all that. And I even started calling them and saying, hey, you know, I'm now working for the town, I'm sending out information, who do I need to send that to? Who's the best contact for that? And I would gather all the local media and put them into a distribution list together. Then I would do a regional and national media list separate, which you can include, for example, we put in Knoxville, Roanoke, places like that that are within our drive market, so that way people know what's going on around us. That if they wanna come into town for the weekend, or you want them to come up and try something out, or you have some announcement to make, then they can plan for that. And then that way it gets it into the bigger markets. And of course, national media is when you have big things to announce, like the website unveiling, those type of things we will send out to like the bigger, if you've been named for an award, all those. I have a blogger list of local bloggers, like travel bloggers, people who are from around the Tri-Cities all the way up to, Richmond, DC, all those, that I send them items about what they may want to come and visit and write a story on. And then, of course, I have a magazine list where I will send pitches to, as far as when we want them to come and do a travel writer story, we want them to come and spend, a couple days in Abingdon, I'll pitch, well, we're having the anniversary of the Highlands Festival, or the anniversary of the Barter, or something like that, to get their interest for it. So you put together all your distribution lists, and then you enter whoever you're sending this to. Of course, we'll say we're just sending it to the local media. Enter their email addresses into the press list in blind copy. I cannot stress that enough. Like, enter it into BCC. You do not want people to see who all you're sending it to. And you also don't want everybody to be able to steal your distribution list that you've worked all this hard time on to put all these people together to get to know them and everything. You don't want to just give their email addresses away to other people. So don't share the email addresses with everybody. Please, please, please put it in the blind copy section. And after you've sent the email to all your contacts and everything goes out, you're then going to want to follow up. First and foremost, you want to see if someone covered the story. So you want to do some research. You want to see if that article got printed. For example, I use Google Alerts, whereas anything about Abingdon that's been written, or articles or anything, those articles come up in Google Alerts. So that way I can see. If I send out a press release, I'm sitting there waiting the next morning to see if that came in and it got printed. So then I already know. Then, of course, if you don't see it already getting printed, send another release or a reminder, or just send a little email to them and say, hey, I sent you some information yesterday. I'm just checking up to see if you got it. Then, of course, make sure if they contact you, if the press contacts you, make sure you answer them in a timely manner. You want to make sure that you get them all the questions answered and get that right back to them. And if you can't answer the questions, direct them to the right contact and give them a phone number or an email that you know that person will get back with them. If they contact you about setting up a time to come to an event, set up a time with them so you know they'll be there so you can greet them at the event. Understand that not every press release that you send to the newspaper, television, radio is going to be printed. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Not everything that you send them they're going to pick it up. And then, of course, after it's published, I like to send them a thank you. Like if I find out who the reporter is, for example, like Allie Gibson does a lot of stuff for us, so I always shoot her a thank you. Thank you for printing that, or thank you for coming to the event, or something like that, just so they know that you appreciate them doing that for you. And I would suggest getting to know the local media, invite them, have a media day, kind of switching gears a little bit. We're going to have a media day at the fire department, and we'll invite the media to come and see when they do their burning of the buildings and they go in, and so that way the media can see firsthand what goes on, or even be a part of that. So I would suggest doing something like that. Have a media day, invite them to things, get to know them, tell them to come tour your facility. Like if you have a museum or something, tell them, schedule different times to get them to come and tour it so so they know what all you have to offer. And of course, introduce yourself at events, talk to them, ask them if they need anything else. Swap contact information. Most of them have my cell phone number, so they can call me and say, I need such and such, I need more information, can you tell me this, or I didn't get the name of the person, can I have that, something. So that way they can call me directly and I can get back to them just like that. Or I can say, hold on just a second, let me call you back, I gotta go find out. Go for coffee, of course, sit down with them. Talk to them about what they're looking for when it comes to articles. If you know what they're looking to print, then, and you send that to them, then they'll most likely print it. And of course, a big thing for us is social media. Get on their social media, follow them on Twitter, like their Facebook pages, follow back each other, do some dialogue, like some articles that they have printed, those type of things to get the relationship growing. And of course, just to kind of finalize, just remember these rules. Number one, just use your press release as a tool or a pitch. This is a great tool for you to use. Have a newsworthy story, write it like a reporter would write it. Think about yourself, think if you were at the scene of something or you were at an event, what kind of questions would you ask them? What kind of things do you want to know? And of course, provide some good quotes, and then contact your top outlets personally and get to know them. So those are just some brief overviews. And that's it. And I don't know if we want to do questions now, or do you want to wait until after Mr. Maxwell goes?
Probably wait.
Okay.
You basically did my whole presentation.
Oh,
I'm gonna go ahead and pass. Yeah, just leave it on if you would, that'd be
Okay.
great. Just go ahead and take one and pass that along, and if you take one of my business cards too, you did a great job setting me up here, I feel like you did a great job. I've had the privilege of being in a newspaper publisher and being in the newspaper business now for, almost 30 years. It'll actually be 30 years next week, believe it or not. I started when I was 14. Newspapers and media in general have changed a lot, and how we get information out to the general public has changed a lot. You've seen the rise of websites, you've seen Twitter, you've seen Facebook, so you've got social media, you've got digital media and everything. And really what we've tried to do as a newspaper, and most recently under the tutelage of Warren Buffett, which is sort of a big advantage of being owned by Warren Buffett, is he's given us the resources to do the things we need to do and focus on community news. And you all, in terms of what you do, are trying to get news out into the community. So we're a good avenue to do that, as are all local media. I'm not going to just talk about newspapers today, but I will talk about the things that we have in common with other media. What's the best type of publicity?
Free.
Free publicity is the best, and a press release is the best way to get free publicity. The other thing is, and I alluded to this earlier, is that if you have news to send out, and Neil did a very good job explaining, Tuesdays through Thursdays is sort of the best window. You also need to identify your audience. Who are you trying to reach with this? Is this just the general public, or do you have a targeted audience you're trying to reach? You may choose a media based on the target audience that you're trying to reach. I would not suggest trying to send a press release out to every media in the marketplace, because it's kind of, I call it the shotgun approach, and that's why you won't see your press releases published or listed on websites or make it on TV or radio. It's relevance. Relevance is really the key, and when you write a press release, creating a relevant document or expressing or sharing relevant information is really critical. And Neil shared this with you already, but the who, what, where, when, why, and how, those are all very, very important. All of those details. Everything I do when I write, and I write a little bit every now and then, that's how I fundamentally structure what I'm writing about. But then I go to the key, and then this is the key question I have listed at the bottom of the page. What is the benefit people receive from attending if you're promoting an event? What's the benefit? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be educational? Is there going to be information there that's free? Like this event today. This is a free event, and there should be benefits. You should leave with some benefits, and hopefully in that packet of information that I've presented to you, there's some key takeaways. Not the least of which will be some duplication with what Tennille has already shared with you about the who, what, where, when, why, and how. You need to craft press releases really beyond the what, when, why, and how, and focus again on those benefits. What is a benefit, okay? And I always use this as an analogy with my salespeople. When you go to the hardware store and you're gonna buy a shovel, what's the benefit you get from that shovel? What are you really looking to buy? You're not really looking to buy a shovel. You've got a need. That need is, you've got a hole in the ground you gotta dig, okay? So there's a need tied to a benefit. And so when you're crafting your press releases, for whatever reason, for an event, to promote something that's happening within your organization, to promote a person that's within your organization, to promote an award you won or something, it's really critical to focus on that benefit. Why would people be interested in this? When we go out and we make sales calls on businesses for advertising, one of the things that, again, that we really try to coach our salespeople on is, what are they trying to sell? What's the objective? What's the key need they're trying to fill with the product or service that they're selling? And that's what you need to focus on when selling a product or when focusing on an event or something that you're promoting through a press release. Again, free is the best. Again, quotes, if you've got quotes, we're always looking for quotes, and that's critical. If you've got photos are key as well. And Joe Tennis was brilliant when he asked you to copy and paste that in the body of the email, because it does two things. First off, you've got your PDF that you have, which is your document. And typically, when you only get a PDF, somebody has to go through and retype that. And if you have to rekey something, I used to be a teacher years ago. I call it typing still, because I taught typing, believe it or not. But when you type or keyboard something, there's an opportunity for an error. You can transpose letters, you can transpose numbers. So when you send it in and we can copy and paste, it's more for your benefit than it is for ours in terms of accuracy. So that is really key. The other thing that she pointed out that's vitally important as well is have somebody proofread your work. I can't tell you how many times, like if I'm writing a column, I have to go to my editor and say, please, please, please proofread this for me. And please don't hesitate to make changes or make suggestions and so forth. So having another set of eyes is really important. Focus and write your press release to your audience. That's vitally important as well. And again, who is your audience? What's the demographics? Because the demographics will also determine the media that you should use or focus on in terms of getting that press release sent out. Write compelling and concise email subject lines. I can't tell you how many press releases I receive, and I ask, and that's why I passed out the business cards today. I ask that if you send any of my newspapers, and I have newspapers, I have the Bristol Herald Courier, the Washington County News, I also have newspapers in Richlands, Tazewell, Marion, Bland, Wytheville, and Floyd. Sort of the footprint that you serve, Sandy. But copy me, because when I started at the Bristol Herald Courier 4 years ago, and for whatever reason, there was not a real good protocol in place for press releases. And so people in the communities that we served got kind of frustrated because they'd send in press releases and nothing had ever happened, or there wouldn't be any follow-up. And it'd be kind of a big, to you, if you have an event or you're introducing a new product or a new service, it's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal. You're banking on your business success and being able to roll these things out and helping promote it. And so one of the things I've asked people to do in the community, and they've gotten used to this now because I get over 200 emails a day, and a lot of those are press releases. Send me your press releases too, because oftentimes what I'll do is if you didn't write it correctly and it's not compelling and I know it's a big deal, I'll go over to my newsroom and I'll send it to my editors, either in Bristol or at any of the other newspapers, and I'll say, hey, I think we really need to run this, or hey, maybe we need to do a follow-up because this might be a story, okay? And that's the other thing that often comes from these, especially when it comes to what we do in the newspaper business, is oftentimes you're providing us a lead with a story. And so the more information you can provide, and like Tennille said, in terms of contacts and numbers and statistics and photos and things like that. That's pitching a story. You're pitching us a story every time you send us a press release, basically. One of the things that I've also instituted, and I don't know how many of you are involved with nonprofits in your community, but nonprofits are, to me, the lifeblood of our community. There's so many needs that our communities have that I feel it's important that we as newspapers can do, and I'd say the newspapers, the 8 newspapers that I'm responsible for, is that in each one of our communities, it's vitally important for us to work with our nonprofits, because you help out with hunger, you help out with education, you help out with homelessness and shelter. Those are just the key components to survival, and I feel it's our responsibility to do what we can to help out with that. And so, again, give us that information. Send us the more information you can. We will help, because that's what I feel it's our responsibility to do. And it was a change when I started at the newspaper. They were looked more internally. Now we look more externally. We embrace our communities. If you have good news to sell or you're sharing, again, the Tuesday through Thursday thing is important, but I wasn't kidding earlier when I said about sending out press releases at 4:45 on a Friday afternoon if you have bad information to share. Because oftentimes if you're with a larger company and you're gonna have to announce a layoff or a government investigation or something like that, that oftentimes that news will get lost over the weekend. People won't be paying as much attention to the news over the weekend. I can chart our traffic on our website based on what day of the week it is and what time of the day it is. Typically, first thing in the morning, when people get to work, they're checking our website. So we see our traffic spike between probably 7:30 and 10:30 a.m. That's the highest traffic we have to our site. When you send us a press release and it's timely, we'll put it on our website first. In the old days, newspapers used to not put anything on their websites until after it already published in the newspaper. For a weekly newspaper, that was death, because your news was a week old by the time it got published. So now we have the ability through our websites to be able to get that information on immediately, and oftentimes within minutes if it's timely. I get press, like I say, press releases all the time. We had something from Wellmont last week, and within 5 minutes of getting that information from Wellmont, we were able to put it on our website. I mean, that's how quick we're able to respond. And really that's what you need to be looking for too, unless you've got bad news to share. Again, like if it's an Alpha Natural Resources and you're having a layoff or shutting down a mine, you typically want to wait as late in the week as possible, as late in the day as possible, to share that again, because it will be lost or diluted over the weekend, because there won't be any more business news and people will be looking at entertainment and other things like that. Provide specific information and insights to journalists who are pressed for time and resources. And I hate to say this, but our reporters, and we have 6 reporters in Bristol, not counting sports, and I hate to count sports, and really, I don't count Joe Tennis either, because he's a features writer. But these people have areas of content that they're focused on. I call them content managers, but they call them beats. And if they're working on that specific content area and you send them something, they're working all the time. They're looking for stories, they're setting up appointments, they're making phone calls, they're sending emails. And so, again, go into that subject line, make the subject line compelling and get their attention. And then, again, they're pressed for time, so make it as concise as possible and provide as much contact information as you can. And like Tennille said, think like a journalist, and that's hard to do because some journalists I wouldn't want to think like, a little crazy. I worked for the Dow Jones Company for 14 years, and I'm from Oregon originally, and I'm gonna tell a little story. Sorry, I'm gonna interject here a little bit, but I worked for the Dow Jones Company, and I got promoted to a position in New York from Oregon, which was quite a move. Rural Oregon, much like our area here, to New York City. And one of our papers that I visited, I had 23 newspapers that I was responsible for as a corporate director, was in Middletown, New York, and they had a great story about an ex-reporter. His name was Hunter S. Thompson. He was an author, kind of a gonzo guy. Don't think like that kind of journalist, okay? Don't think like that, but provide the good basic information. kind of moving along here. I did provide a format outline, much like Tennille did, but one of the things you really want to do is stress urgency when you're writing a press release. And so if we put for immediate release at the top, that's kind of like the title for every one of your press releases. If you do that, that's going to get our attention. But in your subject line, in addition to putting for immediate release, again, you have to get kind of creative in how you write it to catch people's attention. So if I just see something that says press release, I'm not going to pay as much attention to it as I am that something that has a benefit or something that has urgency. Urgency is also another key. The headline, the city, state, county, month, day, year, information, the body, the company, organization information, and then again the contact information. And don't forget those 3 hashtags at the end. I don't know why that is. They should put 30 at the end of everything. All right. And then I attached a sample press release for this event today. And it follows most of the steps. The only thing it's missing really is the 3 hashtags. But as soon as we received this press release, and I didn't coach them on this was up on our website on tricities.com, probably, like I say, within 15 to 20 minutes of receiving it. When these things come in, again, if you can stress some urgency in terms of letting people know, that's vitally important. And then I didn't include this, but there was in my original packet, I had a copy of the Wellmont press release. Again, the optimal time to deliver, Tennille did it perfectly. And again, it's based on what you need. Try not to send anything over the weekend because your email will get lost with all the emails that are received. If it's urgent, put urgent on it. But if it isn't really urgent, you put urgent on it, don't do that. Okay? Don't try to fake us out to get us to read it. It's like the subject line in a text or something else. The relevance is important, and oftentimes I put myself in the position of a consumer or a reader or an advertiser. Is what is important to you? What is important to them? Okay? And so when I'm communicating with them, there's some basics, okay? And so if I can identify one of those basic needs, okay, in terms of formulating or drafting or crafting this email, I will put that. I've had people send me press releases to review before they've submitted them, and I've rewritten them for them, which I really shouldn't do, but I will, just because I like to try to help people. And everybody, I may not agree with what they're doing. Some Tea Party folks, actually. One of my neighbors, Susan, lives in Washington, Canada, sent me a press release, and it was so horrible I had to rewrite it for him. And I sent it back to him. I said, submit this instead. But it's something I had to do. Let's see. I don't have a lot of experience in working with bloggers. And bloggers are sort of their own creatures in terms of what they do and how they do it. And they're very passionate and so forth. But I do agree with Tennille that I think there is they have a following. And anybody who has a following, and if that following is the target audience you're trying to reach, then there's a potential for sending press releases as well. Sending press releases to television stations, unless they have like a noon show like WCYB has, or a morning show like WJHL has, they're looking for content or ideas for those types of things, and I've worked with some organizations who've been able to get on air to get some promotion for an event or something like that. But typically, if you send them a press release for a general event, you'll make it on their events calendar, probably on their website, which is good because they have an audience that they're trying to reach as well. But you need to look at the reach for each one of the media. Okay, if I send WCYB a press release about an event that I'm having at my business, okay, well, one or two things are going to happen. They'll probably put it on their community calendar, which is good. But they're probably also going to CC that and give it to their sales department. And they may be sending a sales rep to you to sell you an ad to run, especially if it's a retail type event of some kind. Now, I typically don't run press releases for retail events, okay, because that's sort of like you're asking for free advertising. But if you have a retail event and a nonprofit in the community is going to benefit something from that event, I'm probably going to look a little differently. okay? Because you're doing something not only for yourself, but it's also something for the community. So if you can tie in with a nonprofit organization and get them involved in it, there's a much stronger likelihood, especially with my newspapers, of us publishing that press release, if it's just retail oriented. We also have a business news website called Work at Tri-Cities. So if you have a member of your staff or yourself who've received some sort of an award or certification of some kind, we'll publish it on Work at Tri-Cities. And a lot of those local pieces make it into our Monday Work at Tri-Cities business page as well, on the Bristol Herald Courier. I don't know, I guess we probably have a wide selection, a cross-section of different kind of businesses in here. If I could, I'm just gonna go around the room and ask you to just to say what you're involved in, or if you're in a retail business, just give me the name of your business, your service business, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a governmental agency of some kind.
Orange Valley Printing.
White Birch Juice Company.
IT Connections is the service.
Okay,
I work for the state and do marketing for the region.
okay, okay.
I work at a local realtor's office where we also put together the horse shows.
Okay.
Doing business challenge for friendly taxi service.
Okay.
Yes, the Brewer County Services business.
Okay.
DePaul Community Resources nonprofits.
Marketing agency.
Dreamland Alpacas.
Work with a couple of volunteer fire departments.
Okay.
About Face, which is a weight loss and aesthetic business.
United Way Southwest Virginia, we're a nonprofit.
I know what you do.
Okay. Any Oakley Mercantile?
Okay.
Driver Training Incorporated.
Okay. Back here.
Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center.
Okay.
Phone Fire Smokehouse, downtown Athens.
I'm hungry.
Also with the
Okay.
William King Museum of Art in Abingdon.
Okay.
And also with the museum.
Okay. Very good. So we've got a cross-section of both service, nonprofits, retail, food. I'm thinking about food because I had lunch today.
We're gonna take you to lunch.
That's okay. You don't have to do that.
And there are several Rotarians in here too.
Oh, excellent. I am proud to say I'm a past president of the Bristol Rotary as well. Rotary is another one of those organizations involved in the community and really on a worldwide basis to help out with, making our world a better place to live. I'm also going to send out another handout now. And I've used this, believe it or not, for almost 20 years. This was from a study done by Yale University 20 years ago. The 10 most powerful words in advertising. 10 words. The 10 most powerful words in advertising. And the reason I felt this was relevant to press releases, and this is good for nonprofits, this is good for service, for retail, is that if you can use these words and weave these words into your subject line, into your headline, somewhere or multiple places within your press release, again, it's going to catch more people's attention, not just the press, but the people who you're trying to reach. I've talked a lot about getting my attention as the press, but getting the attention of the people in your audience, really reaching that audience is really important. Tennille said a couple of things while this is going around, also that I agree with, in terms of reaching out to the press and establishing a relationship with the press. But one of the things I'd like you to make sure that you do, again, and this will help really reinforce your press release, is if you have key press that you're sending this to, after you've emailed it to them, and hopefully it's emailed and not mailed, because we really don't get a lot of press releases mailed anymore, and we typically don't get a lot that are faxed. The fax machine is sort of like a dinosaur that's gone away. I'll never forget the first day I saw a fax machine, because it was really scary. But I thought it was going to revolutionize the world. And it sort of did. It led to email. Yeah. But what I would encourage you to do is, in addition to emailing that press release, is if you have a contact who you email it to, and email it to a person, don't email it to a mailbox. Okay, features at bristolnews.com. There is one person who reads that, but I would go ahead and send it there anyway, but CC me. Her name is Jan Patrick, and Jan's sort of the old school. I'm not gonna pick on Jan. If she was here, I would. But she's sort of the old school. Actually, she works very close with Joe Tennis. And when I asked Jan to do this presentation, she did this to the Lead Bristol class a couple of years ago. She did it once, and it was because she was like this, like one of my school teachers when I was in junior high school. You will do this. You will do that. You will do this. You can't do things like that. But what I would encourage you to do is know who you're sending it to, a name, a person, all right? And then follow up with them, especially if it's for an event that's timely and you don't see it immediately. Follow up with them immediately, say, did you receive this? I just wanted to confirm you received it. Leave a voicemail message. I would encourage you to do that, especially if it's critical or key. And because you're sort of sending it off into the ether, I call it the ether. You're sending it off in there into the World Wide Web, and you don't know if somebody's email crashes, you don't know if there's, it caught up in the spam filter. I mean, I go through my spam filter every day, and the stuff that's there, thankfully, is the stuff that belongs there. But sometimes something that shouldn't go through there will get stuck in there. So I would encourage you to follow up if you can. Again, in a timely basis, because again, there's urgency. You really need to stress urgency, and again, whether you're running a retail business, a service business, or a nonprofit, or have a nonprofit event, urgency is key. Sign up today. I think that's one of the key words too. I don't know, in terms of advertising. Let's see, and I also put in here a directory of sorts of contacts both at my newspapers and for the television and radio stations in the Tri-Cities. It's just sort of the start, kind of help you get started in terms of developing that media list. And like Tennille said, data is golden. It's like data, your database of your customers or your givers or whatever you work with, the businesses you work with, you network with, that is golden. Okay, protects your database. And I didn't know how the BCC thing, that was cool. I like that, okay? I will do that.
Yes.
Okay, I will encourage more people to do that. Because
Repeat it. I missed what she said about that.
when you send out an email and I know this happened yesterday, because I had it, and the person who the email was sent to was the person who sent it. Everybody else they were sending it to was in the BCC line, all right? That's protecting the database. So you didn't want to know who all this was going to, all right? Sometimes you may want to know somebody else to know who it's going to, so use it wisely. Exactly. Use it wisely, because there's a lot of competition among media, especially if you have a big thing going on. Okay, so if you send this to me, and then you also send it to my counterparts in Kingsport and Johnson City, I'm going to stress a little more urgency, because I'm going to scoop them. Okay, that's the other thing. Newspapers love competition. I used to be a football coach. I mean, I love competition, and I love nothing more than now with the internet, being able to scoop television and radio, and we do that a lot, and we're pretty proud of it, and we celebrate that a lot. I like to celebrate stuff like that. So it's just something that we do. It's kind of fun, but it adds a little excitement to the what we do on a daily basis. But again, this will help you with developing that database that you have and to send those out to. I can't stress enough the relationships and establishing relationships with people that are the media in your market. And our reporter here in Abingdon is Allie Gibson, and she's very approachable. She's not tainted. A lot of journalists are tainted. I call them tainted. They're a little sarcastic, a little cynical. She probably has a little cynicism, but she's very nice, and she's very good at following up. If there is ever anything promised to you by the newspaper, by a reporter, by an editor, by a photographer that isn't followed up, you have my card, okay? Because we take a lot of pride in what we do and how we do it, and our word is very important. And that's one of the neat things about working for a newspaper is integrity. And that is vitally important. And so that's one of the things I really stress. One thing I was going to do today, but we're not really promoting the newspaper, was I was going to bring our Pulitzer Prize by and share that. I didn't do that because I'm not really promoting the newspaper, but that integrity thing and what we do and how we do it is so important. And so utilizing a media, and all media win awards. I mean, the television stations, the radio stations, the other newspapers, they all win awards and everything, and they all take pride in what they do. And you know, but it's just figuring out which one's gonna work best for you and focusing on that. But also, I mean, again, try to use a shotgun approach. But try to use a rifle approach. Use a shotgun if you've got a big announcement to make that's going to impact a whole bunch of people. Because the more people you reach, again, the better off, or the more people are going to see your message. Now I'd like to open it up for questions, and you can ask any question you like about the newspaper business or press releases.
I got a question. You said about building relationships with the reporters. Do they monitor like Twitter and Facebook and some of the social platforms?
All of our reporters in Bristol have Twitter accounts and are on Twitter. In fact, one of the things I do, and I make them do, is they have to report. I have a report card every week as to how many tweets they send and how many Facebook posts they send. Because social media, and again, we've just talked about sort of more traditional media and using email to deliver things and websites a little bit. Social media is a phenomenon all its own. And if you're the United Way here in Washington County, and you need to get something out, ask us to put it out on our website, okay? Because we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million page views a month and probably close to 600,000 unique visitors every month. That's a fairly large audience, and most of those people are right here in the Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee area. So again, the more you can reinforce that, don't rely on one media to get your word out, okay? Especially with press releases. Use a mix, because everybody has a little different audience. I'm sure that the majority of the people who go to the WCYB website, some of them, especially the local ones, probably come to tricities.com. But there's some other ones that probably don't, and likewise, back and forth. So we can reach a lot more people. Our Facebook accounts, I think right now we have about 16,000 Facebook followers, which seems like a lot, but when you look at WCYB, they have over 100,000. But they got a big old footprint, you know, in 4 states. So I'm pretty happy with my 15,000. We're pretty happy with that. We don't promote it every day, but we should. Yes.
So, for an event on this list, which contact would you want to email your press release to?
Like me first, okay, and then because you're here in Abingdon,
Bristol.
you're in Bristol, okay. I would send that to Christine Utah. Is she listed on there? She's the managing editor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd send it to Christine Utah and me, okay? And usually if they see my name CC'd on it too, there's a little more urgency involved in that.
And the other part to that question is, would it be the sender's responsibility to know or request or make known that the press release is to go under briefly or fundraiser, or?
You can make that recommendation. Again, it might be more than that, it might be a story, okay? So again, I would say here's a press release for your community calendar, or here's a press release for, you know, whatever. You can make recommendations.
But if you don't, they'll determine where else.
They'll make, you see, again, you're doing the thinking for them. Odds are 90% of the time or 95% of the time, if you make that recommendation, they'll follow that recommendation.
Oh, okay.
If it's applicable or relevant.
Right. Thank you.
I will say we went around last night and asked people at the challenge, how did you hear about it? And of course, the Bristol Herald, the paper was mentioned many times, so we appreciate that. If you don't know, they're a sponsor of ours for the challenge and the new knowledge, so I appreciate your help getting the word out.
You're very welcome. We again, my philosophy and the newspaper's philosophy is helping small business. And Warren Buffett, when he bought our paper 2.5 years ago now, the commitment, and his commitment, and what he's drilled into us is a commitment to small business and our community and community news, and that's our role. And so, press releases are community news. The information you have to share is important to other people in the community, and you need to utilize us to get that word out for you.
Yes. I belong to a nonprofit, American Advertising Federation of Southwest Virginia. Each spring, we do a media auction that is specifically targeted to small businesses where it's a fundraiser for the club. We get various people to donate certain media, and then we want people to come bid on it. You know, opportunity to advertise for extremely lower rates than what you would normally pay. So how do we target the right, who would be my target market as far as sending that press release out?
So are you getting businesses in the community?
Yes, we
You're
want
focusing this-
attendance by businesses in the community.
Okay, then I would use your basic media there. I mean, I'd use your newspapers, I'd use your radio stations, and I'd use your television stations. And also coupled with that, if you're trying to get media to donate to the event,
Oh, yes.
I would reach out to the top people, the general managers at the television stations.
And you?
And me, publishers at the newspapers, with that request.
Okay.
But also focus on the benefits. Again, that's critical for me. If there isn't a benefit to me, and again, I don't mean to sound like I'm a business too, all right? So, but mine is both financial, but also in terms of my fulfilling my responsibility to the community. So if I can help a nonprofit business succeed, that's fantastic. If I can donate advertising space that will be used by a small business to help them get off the ground, or
That will hopefully then regenerate more business for you.
that's it. That's
the
exactly.
whole
It's an
idea.
investment. It's an
Right.
investment on my part. There's a small business competition in I believe in Bristol, downtown Bristol, and we donate advertising space to the winner of that competition every year. We'd be glad to. I think we're doing it also for the event here as well, right?
We'll have to do it on that.
Okay.
We're actually gonna invite you to the announcement of the winners.
Oh, fantastic.
We may have a winner right here. We've got several.
Yeah, we have several
Participants.
participants in the room today.
Excellent. Very good. But again, anything we can do to help businesses and nonprofits succeed. That's what we do, and why we're here. Really, that's really it. Getting the word out to the community is vitally important. News, that's an important responsibility, but helping business as well.
So in the top 10 power words, the bottom says there's one word often used in advertising that invokes immediate action, but it's not on this list. What is it?
Free.
You say your favorite word.
Free.
Four-letter word.
If you are a business and you run free anything pretty much, you're gonna get a lot of people through the door. Now, it may not be the audience you wanna reach, but free. I mean, I can make any advertisement in a newspaper or online successful and get traffic. I can send people through the door like crazy. But ultimately, it's the business that has to decide what it is that they're trying to sell and the value to the customer. And I can help drive traffic that way, as can all the other media.
What is your footprint for the Bristol newspaper?
Our footprint goes from, actually Sullivan County in Tennessee, Washington County quite heavily, and then it gets into Tazewell, all throughout Southwest Virginia, not to the far west of Southwest Virginia. Scott County is probably the end of the line, but then all the way north through Smith County and to rural retreat. We don't have daily circulation in Withville. In fact, last year or a year and a half ago, we bought the Roanoke paper, Berkshire Hathaway did, and so now we're affiliated with the Roanoke newspaper. So we do have daily circulation with Roanoke and Withville. In fact, they print our Withville and Floyd papers for us now. Any other questions? Yes.
Awesome. Either of you can tell me if this is a no-no, but right now what we do is, we've had an issue in the past with being sending out an email to media that's been too many email addresses, and so we've been blacklisted, and that's been an issue before. So we started doing it through Constant Contact. Is that a no-no to you all? Should we do it through email and BCC, or you can still copy paste through Constant Contact? But how do you all feel about that?
So you got blacklisted for sending out too many?
Yeah,
How
Wow.
rude of them.
it was not good for a while.
No.
Yeah.
Still have problems emailing.
Yeah, it was rough, and yeah, she still has problems.
I'll say, I've never used Constant Contact, so I wouldn't really know. I would think coming, directly from you, like your email, it would be a little
Right.
more
Personal.
And that's the one good thing about Constant Contact is it says it comes from your email address, so you can pick which email address.
So you're using a third party to send out the emails
Right, and it
for
still
you to
says
get
it
through
comes
the-
from me, right?
Right.
But you can
Yeah.
tell with the email that it's from a third party. I mean, it has the template and whatever. So, is it more better received from people like you all, or?
It doesn't really matter to
Okay.
us. Again, just getting it is key. I mean, and I can't stress enough also accuracy, grammar, spelling, again, because, I mean, the perfect, in my world, the perfect press release is pre-written. It's like it conforms to our style. We don't have to go through and edit it or rewrite it. It's just one that we can say, wow. And that doesn't happen very often, but wow, we can just put this into our editorial system and flow it right into the page. I think we were able to do that actually with the press release you sent us, so I appreciate that. But that's, again, you're making our job easier for us and getting your word out, and that's the key. So if we don't have to re-keyboard it, type it, or touch it in any other way, we're not gonna make any errors. It's gonna get in exactly the way you wrote it. But we are the grammar Nazis. We are the style Nazis. If you can get a copy of the Associated Press style book, if you write a lot of press releases, the Associated Press style book will provide you with information on how to write them, especially if you're gonna write a lot of press releases. That's really a good tool to use.
What's your readership of people that's newspapers being delivered to their home versus what they're reading it online? You know what
We have, on a daily basis right now, I reported this just last week when we closed the month. Our print product on a daily basis has about 65,000 readers. And online on a daily basis, it's probably another 40,000 readers. So we got about 100,000 people who read our content in print and online. And the online audience is growing. We're seeing more and more of that. The other thing that we offer and that a lot of other media offer are email blasts. We can send out our own emails. And so we have an email list of people who've signed up to receive emails from us of about 30,000 people. So we can send out 30,000 emails a day. And we talk about what's in the newspaper, we talk about specials at certain restaurants, we can send out, and again, we've helped nonprofits as well by sending out, if you have a fundraising event, we'll send out one of our email blasts for your fundraising event as well. And again, we can sell those to private businesses.
So is there a charge for that?
For for-profit businesses, yes.
Or for nonprofits?
For
like
nonprofits, typically I'll donate that.
Well, like for the Rotary Club?
Oh, we can do it for you.
Or the Bronx?
Yeah, just send me the
We're
information.
just about sold out. but-
Okay. If you need any help selling extra tickets, just send it to me and I'll help
must
you.
be 2 stars in the back of the room. Must be.
Thelma and Louise.
That's good, I like that.
Any other questions? This is your time.
I'm a captive audience, you got me here.
Come on, surely.
Newspaper business has changed a lot in the last 10 years. I remember I had my first publisher's job in 2006, 9 years ago. I was in Pennsylvania, and at that time, the internet was just starting to percolate up. And I'll never forget, I had my internet lead person came to me and said, have you seen these text message things? This was like 9 years ago. And I said, yeah, they're pretty cool. And I said, how could we use those? Well, why don't we send out headlines or breaking news stuff? And I thought about the community I lived in. It was in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. It was right along Interstate 80 that led directly into New York City. And we had about 65,000 people a day who lived in our community who commuted into New Jersey and New York. And I I said, let's put together traffic text alerts. And so we did that, and within 3 months, we had 25,000 people subscribing. And I was getting emails. We made a deal with the New Jersey Department of Transportation to give us accident information and road construction information. And people would send me emails and say, thank you, saved me 30 minutes on my commute last night. Because it was a full hour or 90-minute drive into New York City from where we live. And some people did that every day, twice. I mean, it was crazy. And any minute, any time you could save that was more time they had to spend with their family. I just thought that was pretty cool. The other thing was with breaking news. We had a lot of fires in our community. I'll never forget, we had a fire in downtown Stroudsburg. And we'd been doing text alerts for probably 3 months. And this alert went out. Well, a friend of mine who was in a Rotary Club owned a little biotech company, and he was in Shanghai, China. And he got our text alert about this fire on Main Street in downtown Stroudsburg. And he knew the guy who owned the building next door. He recognized the address. So he got on his phone from Shanghai, and he called the guy, and he said, hey, are you okay? The guy goes, well, what are you talking about? He goes, the building next door to you was on fire. And the guy looks out the window, and he goes, oh my God. He gets a text from us to Shanghai, China, and a cell phone call back.
That's incredible.
And it was amazing. That's how quickly technology has changed what we do, and how we really need to, as a media, need to utilize it. I'm just going to use the term exploit, that's a bad word. Utilize technology to help get information out. One of the things, again, that we did in that newspaper was we participated in a study by the American Press Institute out of Washington that was involved disseminating information using new technology. And what we did was we created, I mentioned content managers for reporters. We created the content management teams. And again, it was really easy because if you had an education story or you were involved in the education business, you would contact just this one reporter. And that reporter was responsible for updating our website every day. He was responsible for putting out a one-page, a lead in our lifestyle section once a week on Wednesdays for education. And then he sent out a weekly email. Again, this was 9 years ago. It was pretty cool. Got written up in the Economist magazine in London as being our little newspaper, as a bright spot in the newspaper business in the United States, which was pretty extreme, but pretty cool.
Sweet.
So I'm always looking at ways that I can do that I can help get information out faster, and you can jump on that by utilizing us to get that word out for you. I have a real boring job. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, I got a question, this might be stupid or whatever, but, yeah, thank you, Rex. But anyway, my old man says there's no stupid questions, but, for the body, would it be a good ideal, because I don't know if a lot of you know there's only one taxi service in Abington. Kind of put, when I'm doing this, kind of put their name out there too, to kind of say, hey, I'm new to this is my competition, kind of like.
You wanna mention your competition?
Yes.
No,
No.
don't wanna do that, because you're giving them free publicity.
Alright,
And if other people have utilized their services before, you're promoting them.
And they'll probably be in the Yellow Pages and so forth. They'll be easier to contact than it would be you. You're giving them the.
Yeah, I wouldn't even mention it. You could say Abington's newest taxi service.
well, that's my next question is, how should I put it?
Well, again, and I don't know if I use this term right, you're selling the sizzle. Okay, that's what you're doing. You're using all kinds of flowery adjectives and action words to describe your product or service. And so you are Abington's newest taxi service. Is that true?
Yeah.
That's a fact. I would say that. Okay? Do you have more how and this is something for all businesses, what differentiates you from your competition?
Well, for one, I'm going to try to have more cars than my
Okay.
competitors.
When you have more cars, then you can say Abington's newest taxi service with the largest fleet of taxis in Abington. That fleet could be 2 cars, but it sounds big, okay? Sell the sizzle, okay? Same thing if you're a nonprofit. If you have an event or if you have a fundraiser, you're not just raising funds, okay? Tell the public what those dollars are gonna be used for, okay? The United Way, and I'm the president of the Bristol United Way this year. And one of the things that we do is we don't talk so much about raising money. We talk about how much money is going back into the community and what those dollars mean to people who receive services from the 29 agencies that they support. So what we try to do in terms of news is we try to promote the people who receive the services. And they give a testimonial. Testimonials, again, when you want to quote, and again, this is going back to Neil's recommendation. If you get a quote, if you're selling a product or service and you have a very happy customer, use that very happy customer's quote. If you have a social service agency or a nonprofit you're working with that has received great results from something that you've done for them, use that quote. That's key, vitally important.
So then the person that you're giving the quote, you have to give us a contact?
You don't have to, but if you gotta get their permission to use their name, you know, and if the media comes back and says, hey, I wanna interview that person, then you can contact that person and say, hey, they would like to interview you and utilize you in a story that they're writing about our organization. Testimonials are gold, along with free publicity. You got a testimonial and a free publicity, you can actually assign a value to that. I mean, you could base it on the number of inches. The other thing is, again, if you get a copy, what I would encourage you to do is to keep copies of all your press releases that are published, okay, either in print or online, and when I say online, maybe from the television, you do a screenshot. Do a screenshot from the TV station's website that has your announcement on it, but keep track of that, because that shows, okay, that shows that they responded to and they actually published what you sent them. But also, if you're a nonprofit, you can assign a value to that. Actually, if you're a for-profit business and you go to a bank and you want to take out a loan, we got this much free publicity and this is worth X number of dollars. So again, being able to do that, banks, I know with working with other small businesses, banks look at every way you can in terms of being able to get value for what you do. And again, that's free value. There's something to that. Yes?
If you use a quote and just use the person's first name, would you have to get?
No, you wouldn't have to do that. You could put Paul J, Paul J, Paul J, and then put Abingdon, or, Meadowview, or wherever they're from.
And I don't know if everybody knows, or even if you realize, but if you end up in the newspaper with like a feature article, we've been fortunate enough to be in your paper twice. I have the plaques hanging on my wall with the article. There's 2 different companies that have emailed me with.
Yeah, I've seen those in the community, and they're exploiting.
Right.
They're exploiting us. In fact, we've been trying to track a couple of those down because they go to you and they sell you the plaque, right?
Right.
That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
And they don't really have copyright approval to use that. So, anyway,
The advanced manufacturing girl, or the director, I shouldn't say the girl, the director of advanced manufacturing that you did a story on this morning, she's already had the call this morning. She told me, her office is down the hall.
she could send me the contact information. I would really
I have it.
appreciate that.
She's got it, and David's got
If
it.
you could email it to me, it'd be
Yep.
great. I appreciate that. I mean, that's
I personally like having it because I have it hanging. We have a little
Sure.
farm store on our property.
I'd like to be able to provide that for
And
you.
customers come in and read it all the time, and it
Kathy.
has
Kathy.
the headline from the paper too.
Yeah.
So, but I can email you that.
Okay, I appreciate that, thanks. Yes?
Now, when you were talking about quotes, does that have to be a legal signed document, or is it a verbal agreement?
I would get something in writing from someone, because what I found is that people's memories sometimes aren't as good, and especially if it's something that maybe is taken the wrong way, or something negative possibly comes from it. I always, even if it's an email, just say, hey, Shirley, I'd like to get your permission to utilize your quote in this press release that I'm sending out. And she sends you an email back, says yes, then just print that out and keep
So
that.
it doesn't have to be anything formal?
No, it doesn't
just
have to be
as
anything
long as it's identified and time
Right.
dated?
Exactly,
Okay, thank you.
that's key, very important. It's gonna lead me to something else. Yeah, permissions, for use of photos, use of images, trademarks, things like that, that's also very important. And again, if you win an award from a manufacturer, you need to get their permission to utilize their logo in the press release, basically. And if you use it for advertising.
If the person is unidentifiable because of the distance,
Uh-huh.
the size, do you still have to get their permission?
And if you're not identifying who they are, I think you're okay.
Okay.
Yes?
Do you have tips to offer a nonprofit as far as getting a photographer to cover an event?
That's a great question. That is a great question. An email to me would help. Depends on the event. It really depends on the event. And the other thing that's important too, like we're blessed to have 3 photographers in the Bristol Herald Courier. Our weekly papers typically, either the reporters shoot photos, well actually Allie can shoot photos now because technology, iPhones, we use iPhone photos too. But sometimes they'll be scheduled to go do a photo shoot and there'll be an accident, something breaking news or something like that, and then we miss. So one of the things that I've done is I've contracted with a private party to do photos that are non-news photos. But if you can get a volunteer to shoot a photo and send it to us, again, that would go a long way, especially if it's a good photo.
Didn't you say it was good to put a photo with the press
You
release
bet,
if you had
bet.
it?
If you have an event or something, a person, your speaker who's gonna be a speaker or something like that, like at an event like this, use their photo, and maybe they'll use it, maybe they won't, but they have the option. And it may not appear in print, but it may appear online, or it may not appear on the air, but it may appear online.
If anybody has, and I want to add on to that, if you have not attended any of Sandy's iPad or marketing workshops, Sandy did all of these through apps on her iPad, and we send them to the Bristol newspaper, and they print it as is. So, you know, it works. So you really need to, technology is your friend if you know how to use it.
Right.
She's pulled me into a computer screen.
Any other questions? Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come and meet with you today. Again, if you need to contact the newspaper, don't hesitate to contact me. And I think, did everybody get a business card? That wanted a business card?
One person, yes.
Okay, I'm not sure I have any more, but I will give you my contact information. If you send me an email, I'll email you back with my contact information.
All right.
Okay, there you go, technology. I love technology. I have an acupuncturist here in Abingdon, and I go and see him, and I pull out my credit card, he pulls out his iPhone, you sign with your finger, boom, done. I mean, that's amazing to me.
I put it on there as well.
Okay. Okay.
I'll save you some.
So, thank you all, thank you, Jim and Camille. I appreciate
You did an excellent job.
it. We appreciate all of these places. We are able to offer them free through our partnership with the Virginia Department of Business Assistance and the Chamber of Commerce, but also to the speakers who do not charge us for their presentations, and it's in Dave's information. Next week, we have email marketing, and again, it'll be on Wednesday from 12 to 1:30. If any of our participants have a field of expertise, they can shoot us an email and let us know, and we will be working on our next year's schedule. And so we're always glad to have a new presenter or a new partner in these programs. So please fill out your forms and have a good day.